With every weak male archetype in gaming, there's always a boss lady to slap some sense into them. And that's what we're seeing with Outer Worlds 2, the game that has been coming out with some controversy from Obsidian Entertainment that is under Microsoft and Xbox, a once well-regarded organization that is now producing slop on the level of modern-day gaming that we always see from entities taken over by AAA companies like Xbox. And that's what we're getting with Outer Worlds 2, the usual modernization of once great games that have come out in the past. And I've never been a biggest fan of Outer Worlds 1, but I know a lot of people enjoyed it, and so I was expecting a subversion of the main game's principles, and I think this is what we see with Outer Worlds 2. I'll bet it's always been goofy, but it has never been feminized in such a way, and I think that's what we see with the new character models, representations, and of course, at the core of every terrible sequel, terrible writing. And I think that is the thing that we always expect with these new iterations of games that have been coming out these past few years. And we can just see the long list of sequels that have come out with these same type of archetypes, where the archetype of any male hero is weak and effeminate, and every archetype of any female hero is masculinized and a boss lady character. And I think we see these quintessential changes at the foundation of Outer Worlds 2, and it's leading to a backlash from the gamer and gaming audience, because we've been seeing this happening in the gaming industry for the past 10 years, where the male archetype is decidedly torn down and ripped to shreds and made into something that is unappealing, and more than anything, something you don't want to play as. And I think that's the thing that we see with a lot of these characters and their models and their just general personality types, where we just have these one-note personality chains for male and female characters. We see this from all the series, specifically with Obsidian Entertainment. Just look at Avowed, you have the similar character profiles and looks and appeals that are kind of mirroring what we're seeing in Outer Worlds 2, and it kind of brings in this overall monotonization. Every game's world, no matter the technology differences, feels like you're in the same world. It feels like you're in the same bland, diverse world with boss ladies and effeminate men. And I think that is kind of making the gaming experience monotonous. And I think that's why I feel with Outer Worlds 2. It feels like Avowed. It feels like Bloodlines 2. It feels like Concord. It feels like so much games that have been coming out these past few years. And I think that is in line with a lot of the elements in the gaming industry itself, where you have the cocky boss lady, you have the effeminate male that is inoffensive, you have the big bear-like LGBTQ character, you have the gigantic mean black woman, you have all these elements that are always there and kind of disengaging to the audience and fan base. And that's what gaming has become, where the weak male archetype is dominance and the boss lady strong female archetype is at the forefront of everything in gaming. I think it's kind of bringing this feeling that, hey, every game is kind of the same, even when it's not really the same, because we see these archetypes in everything always, even Saints Row, where we just had these weak male archetypes. Of course, government-funded Dustborn, these weak male archetypes at the foundation, because it's kind of an overall ideological trend that is trying to instill these elements and values into the gamer base. And that has been the focal point for the gaming industry these past few years. It hasn't been gaming anymore, especially with a lot of these AAA companies. The focus now is more imposing these trends and ideas into the gamers themselves, where that is the archetype they want males to identify with, and that is the archetype they want females to identify with. This boss lady, annoying character, while you have these other male character types that are supposed to be effeminate and slapped around and bossed around. And I think that is the idea that we see with a lot of these elements in the gaming industry these past few years, where they are being portrayed in such a way because that is what they want to see in the overall gaming audience, because they want to see the world's politics and modernization reflected in every facet of society, especially culturally and entertainment-wise. That's why this is extending out into the world of gaming. That's why this is extending out into the world of movies, TVs, comic books, and of course, video games. And those extensions are ruining the gaming industry as a whole, where we get these characterizations that are not reflective of what the gamers actually want to play. And I think this is what Outer Worlds 2 represents for the gamer, where we're seeing this game that is just basically an advertisement for UN and World Economic Forum ideals, or BlackRock, Vanguard's ideological trends of what they want to see reflective in the market that they are trying to invest in. And if you don't know what I'm talking about the investment class that is overseeing the gaming industry. If you don't know anything about BlackRock and Vanguard, their investment group that has over $20 trillion of investment stocks all across the world. Many of these include publicly traded video gaming companies, and they are directly affecting the trend of what's happening in gaming. They created the concept of DEI that has flooded the gaming market and all markets in general for publicly traded companies, and they influence a lot of the hiring trends that we see in Microsoft and Xbox, Obsidian Entertainment, Blizzard, Activision, Bethesda, and all these other organizations that have deeply went into this angle of producing content that is more political and more focused on bringing these ideals that are at the antithesis of what gamers want. Of course, they influence what the consultancy firms that are being hired to actually direct these games, and that's why we see Sweet Baby Inc.'s Empower. And I think that is the thing that we're seeing right now with Obsidian Entertainment. Obsidian Entertainment is flooded with these type of hiring practices where they're focused more on gender, race, and things and elements like that. And we even have the person that is the game director or art director for Valve coming out and say, hey, we want to make games that are made to antagonize people that don't have our ideals, like Elon Musk, like any male gamer. We want to make something that angers them, and that is the focus of them developing, where they want to exclude any white, black, male, and anyone that has a differing ideology within their overall working group. And he explicitly tweets this, that he wants to remove anyone that looks like him from the overall development market. And I think that's the thing that we see at the forefront of a lot of these gaming institutions, where they're run by ideology, and the ideology is reflected back in the art that they're producing. And I think Outer Worlds 2 is the best example of that, where it feels like it was made by someone that was more focused on their political ends rather than the actual quality of gameplay and the experience that gamers would actually want. No one wants to be a effeminate, weak male character being slapped around by their boss lady auntie. That's just not the experience most gamers want, and I think that's reflective in the gaming environment today, where everything is like this, where you're always being bossed around by a boss lady auntie. And that is just not a fun experience for most gamers. We don't want to experience that. And I think we see this with so much games. Arc Raiders is just another point where the trailer just feels like you're being bossed around by a black lady auntie. It's just like, man, I want to play as a man that's not weak and being bossed around, but that seems to be the overall premise of the entertainment industry, where Black Panther's getting bossed around by 10 black lady aunties, bodyguards, and they want to make a Blade movie with 3 aunties bossing around Blade. I'm like, what is going on with this auntie obsession in the video gaming industry? And I think it just reflects on the boss lady obsession that we've been seeing in the entertainment industry as well, where we have these characterizations that are there to diminish male characters. And I know people are going to say, hey, how do you know that's a male character? We don't know if this is a male character. There might be a female character. And that just brings in the gender ambiguity that we often see in these games that are being made based on ideology rather than actual competency of making a game entertaining to a fan base. And I think entertainment comes last, and I think that's why we see with games like Assassin's Creed Shadows, where they're still trying to make the gameplay better because they didn't even care about the gameplay. They made the game based on their politics, based on what happened in 2020 with George Floyd, based on things that have nothing to do with Japan and assassins and ninjas. And I think they forgot about the gameplay, and they have to actually work on the gameplay later. I think that's what people often feel with these games, where it just don't even feel like they were made to actually be fun. They're made to be mostly messaging tools, and that's why they can barely work sometimes. And people have complaints about Outer Worlds 2, and it's kind of a lackluster gameplay and overall funky graphical output, where it's just not even functioning well and the game is crashing. I think that is just the reflection of the lack of detail that we now see in the gaming industry, where people are not making games for gamers anymore. They're making games as a messaging tool. You can see this on all the advertisements, all the journalists coming to defend old games like Avowed, trying to protect what they believe is rightfully their game that needs to be supported. While gamers, we just want to be men again. And I think this is the opposite of what we're seeing right now in the weak male era of gaming. But you tell me what you think about this era. I want to hear what you think. Tell me, why is the gaming industry like this right now? I think I have my explanation. I told you before, but maybe you have a different explanation. You tell me. I like to hear what you have to say. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This Wagner knows why. Catch you next time.